Good morning, everyone. This is the third meeting of the Legislative Committee on Bill C-32, and today we have the two ministers, Minister James Moore, the Minister of Canadian Heritage and Official Languages, and Minister Tony Clement, Minister of Industry, Science and Technology. So we're happy to have both ministers here today. So Minister Moore, you have the floor.
Good.
Actually, I defer to Minister Clement.
Chair, if that's all right with you.
That would be perfect.
No worries at all. Thank you very much, and good day, colleagues. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to, both of us, for the opportunity to speak to the committee about our government's Copyright Modernization Act, Bill C-32. Avec cette législation, le gouvernement Harper remplit sa promesse de présenter un projet de loi qui modernise la loi canadienne sur le droit d'auteur, protège et crée des emplois, favorise l'innovation et attire de nouveaux investissements au Canada. The Act strikes a balanced approach. It is both consumer and creator-friendly. It is the result of an unprecedented consultation process. Of course, we've received submissions from over 8,600 Canadians. There were face-to-face meetings in nearly every major city in Canada. And we took into account the views of artists and performers, shoppers and surfers, business people and students. Today, I can confidently say to you that this bill represents what we feel is the best compromise for the betterment of both creators and consumers that we could possibly reach. Frankly, for a bill of this scope, balance is our only option. Mr. Chair, on Monday I delivered an interim report to Canadians on the progress our government has made on developing Canada's digital economy strategy. And as a government, we're committed to encouraging further engagement and growth in the emerging digital economy. Digital media is poised to transform our economy in ways we have not yet imagined. Worldwide, the digital media sector is expected to grow to $2.2 trillion over the next 5 years. To flourish in a global digital economy, Canada is not only going to need strong technological industries, we're also going to need to equip our labor force with the digital skills necessary to embrace and succeed in an era of new media and services and commerce. And so Bill C-32 is an important brick in the foundation we are building to support the digital economy of tomorrow. La technologie continue d'évoluer rapidement. De nouveaux appareils et produits arrivent constamment sur le marché et il est important que notre législation sur le droit d'auteur soit adaptée à cet environnement numérique en évolution. Notre gouvernement est prévu de cette situation, and that's why this legislation has been drafted as technology neutral, to stand the test of time and adapt to the technologies of tomorrow. It removes barriers to the smooth introduction and adoption of technologies like the network personal video recorder and cloud computing. And in the classroom, it ensures that online lectures, smart boards, tablet computing, and other innovative technologies, and most importantly, the students they benefit, are not going to be disadvantaged under the law. Our kids can learn in a multitude of ways with the aid of a multitude of technologies. With this legislation, we'll be able to better equip them with the tools they need to learn so that they can grow into the digitally skilled and tech-savvy workforce Canada needs to be competitive in the digital age. Ces modifications s'imposent non seulement pour les écoles, mais aussi pour tous les Canadiens qui participent à des activités telles que l'enseignement à domicile par les parents, les tels apprentissage ou l'acquisition de nouvelles compétences. And the bill ensures that Canada's students will benefit from material that has already been made publicly available online as a powerful learning tool in the classroom, wherever that classroom may be. To sum up, Chair, this is an important and essential piece of legislation. It is Canada's foundation for the digital economy of tomorrow, and what Canadians need now is the timely passage of this bill. We cannot wait any longer. I'm sure I don't need to remind anyone in this room that the last time the Act was updated, we were waiting for Titanic to come out on VHS so we could watch it at home in our VCRs. Times have changed. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Moore?
Mr. Moore?
Je vais juste ajouter quelques commentaires sur ce sujet. First, I'd like to thank members of this committee for agreeing to sit on a legislative committee. I know many of you have parliamentary obligations beyond this committee and sitting on other committees, and I think all of your agreement to have a legislative committee where you have the more flexibility to deal with this legislation and to come together and work cooperatively on what is large, complicated, and technical legislation, I think is a very good sign of cooperation for something I think we all agree is essential for Canada's future, which is a true, proper modernization of Canada's intellectual property rights regime. So I want to thank all members of this committee for agreeing to this process and also for inviting me here today. The consultations that Minister Clement spoke about are what resulted in this legislation. Et les résultats qui le projet de loi C-32 est le fruit du plus vaste effort que nous ayons connu dans la dernière décennie afin de moderniser nos lois sur le droit d'auteur. Il est souple, équilibré et aligné avec les standards internationaux. Il est l'approche exacte permettant de créer des emplois et de promouvoir les nouvelles technologies de demain. Et ceci est important, et laissez-moi vous expliquer pourquoi. The contribution of the digital industries that make up a huge part of Canada's economy, frankly, can't be understated. They comprise in total 5% of Canada's GDP. That's nearly $50 billion in direct economic impact for Canadian industries, nearly 1 million jobs across Canada, and growing. It is absolutely essential that we protect these jobs and these industries that are critical to Canada's economic success. Les technologies numériques sont le carburant de l'économie canadienne et permettent la création d'emplois. Par exemple, l'industrie du logiciel de divertissement, une industrie qui contribue à plus de 1,7 milliard de dollars annuellement à l'économie du Canada. Plus de 250 compagnies de développement de jeux emploient plus de 14 000 personnes à travers le Canada. In Canada's film and television industry, over 160,000 jobs from coast to coast, $5.2 billion industry for this country. These are jobs that are important and that we as parliamentarians must be committed to ensuring stay in Canada and are protected well into the future. And before we take any questions, there's one central part of this bill I think that's been underreported and I think underappreciated in terms of Canada's intellectual property rights regime, and that is that this legislation, as many of you know, has a provision within it that mandates Parliament to review Canada's intellectual property regime and our copyright laws every 5 years. By law, Parliament will be forced to keep our copyright legislation up to date going forward. This week marks the 10-year anniversary since the last time Canadians elected a majority parliament. And because of successive minority parliaments, it's become politically very difficult, I think, for this legislation to be addressed and updated, in spite of many efforts in the past by John Manley, by Jim Prentice, and now by Minister Clement and I to get this right. I think what's important is that the political pressures of Parliament and the possibility of an election campaign cannot arrest our responsibility as a country to maintain our intellectual property rights regime. So while we think that Bill C-32 strikes the appropriate balance in terms of what's in the best interest of all Canadians, we also recognize that in the future there will be new technologies, new pressures, new dynamics that come forward, and Parliament must be forced to, in spite of any political dynamic, must be forced to make sure that Canada's intellectual property rights regime stays up to date, in line with international obligations, and most importantly, in line with what's in the best interest of Canada's future. So that element of the bill, the 5-year mandatory renewal of this legislation, is what I think the big win of this legislation is for all Canadians, that it will force Parliament to have to deal with this legislation on an ongoing basis to make sure that this massive engine of Canada's economic growth, which is the creative economy, will forever be well served by Canada's intellectual property rights regime. So again, I want to thank all of you for being involved in this process. This is a large legislative effort, and it's a sincere effort on our part to get this right in the best interest of all Canadians, and we look forward to working with you in the weeks ahead.